Hello, everybody. This is Zach Said It Again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and it's an honor and a privilege to have the drummer of what I know to be the best tribute band that I've ever heard anywhere. That's probably because I'm a little partial to the music they play. They are a tribute band to Genesis, my favorite band ever, and I am talking with the man who does those iconic drum licks in that band. Their band is called Abacab, named after the famous album and song by Genesis. I am talking to my friend, Mr. Matthew Hedrick. Thank you so much for being with me, Matt.
Greetings, my friend Zach.
It is an honor to have you here, and it's an honor to have a chance to talk with you. You are based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, correct?
That's right.
Is that where you make your home?
Yes, I'm a native of North Carolina, born in Winston-Salem. My wife Sandy and I call it our Beverly Hillbillies moment. We moved to California, Orange County, in 1995, where our children were born, and relocated to Charlotte for a job transfer in 2006. And Charlotte, for reasons I think you've already witnessed, Zach, like those guys in Abacab and this whole, I have lots of communities out in addition to the music community, but just the music camaraderie in Charlotte and the scene here that those guys have turned me on to. This is my home and probably forever my home.
Absolutely. There is such a thing still as being proud of being from the South, I think.
Yep. And I joke we never flew a Confederate flag over our capital in North Carolina, so I've got something to hold my head about. And being a Southerner, I can pick on us. So yeah.
Exactly. And speaking of flying a Confederate flag, I met you a year ago in Saltville, Virginia, of all places, when you were invited to play in the Genesis tribute band with the great folks of Abacab, who are all my friends, by the way, I'm happy to brag about. When you all played the Labor Day Festival last year at Saltville, and a friend of mine called me and said, "You're not going to believe this, but there is a Genesis tribute band playing in Saltville this weekend." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yep, a Genesis and then a U2 tribute band playing in Saltville." And I said, "They're playing in Saltville, and we can't get anything like that in Lithville." But I told my wife about it. My daughter and I, of course, really wanted to go. We had a very magical father-daughter moment. Well, actually, a magical moment for all three of us to see Genesis in Charlotte on November 20th, 2021. The now iconic picture that you see on my Facebook of Bella and I wearing our Genesis masks. You can see the huge smiles underneath our masks. Even though we're wearing masks, you can see that we're beaming. You were at that concert as well, right?
Yeah, there's and we've already exchanged this story. Pete, Cliff, and I had second row tickets at that show, and my wife and older daughter were there, and my younger daughter, I got to see them. I think it was the night before in Raleigh, so I got to experience it with the whole family. I've got to send this to you. There's a friend of ours that was standing in the it was upper level of higher end of the lower section. He took a video of us. I think it was during cinema show, and just the three of us are just like air drumming and just going ballistic. You could see it from up above, us just going nutso. And I don't know if I told you this. I also had and this is a good segue. There's someone I wanted to mention that I think you already know. I had the good privilege of seeing the very last Genesis show in London, which again, you and I have something in common that you thought you were going to see the last Phil Collins show ever in New York.
Right.
But at that last London show, I met a lady named Tracy Baker, and I was going to mention her name to you today because I think your story, your personal story, and the thread of Phil Collins is something that you have in common with her. And lo and behold, I noticed that you're at least connected on social media.
Yep.
So I'd actually met Tracy earlier virtually and met her in person in London, and we've struck up a friendship and supported her cause. So what do you know about Tracy?
I have shared my story with Tracy.
Okay, I was going to do it. You beat me to it. I was like, oh, you got to hear Zach's story.
well, do it anyway and see if she'll connect, because Tracy, I've shared my story, and she knows that my goal when I hit 1,000 columns, however long shot it is to try to get Phil to talk to me on the phone for my 1,000th column, because I'm only going to hit 1,000 once. So she promised to help me if she was ever in a position to do so. However, I am a part of her cause of getting Phil Collins in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist, which he is. Every video you see that's put together on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the inductees say that Phil is the number one most ignored and the most deserving to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, I have my opinions about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and
probably similar to mine.
And you know, the political part of who's in it and who's not in it.
John Wayner's fault. He was the one that kept Rush out all those years.
Well, I mean, the queen of rock and roll barely got in before she died just this year. Tina Turner was inducted in 2021, and even at that point, she was too sick to go to Cleveland or wherever they went to accept it. She accepted it virtually from her home in Switzerland. That was my very first concert. So when you see that as your first concert, and I ended up thankfully in a career that has allowed me to experience a lot of live entertainment, or at least to talk about the live entertainment that I've seen. She really set that bar. And then to see, I mean, I never dreamed, because I just, you know, with my limitations and my physical limitations and my financial limitations, I thought that $130 in 2007 was just, not to mention the gas to drive to D.C., was more than I could afford at that time. Little did I know that I would be spending twice that and driving that anyway, just to see Phil in 2019, and then again for Genesis in 2021. But I know now why I didn't get to do that, because God said, you're going to have a little girl one day that loves Genesis as much as you do, and you're going to be able to take her and you're going to experience that together along with your wife. And the three of us, I mean, that show in November was the best show that we've ever seen anywhere, ever. I mean, Phil.
You know, I wonder I wonder if without your daughter we'd be having this conversation today, because it was your daughter at that Saltville show that we were playing, and when Pete noticed how into it she was, and then, you know, you've told this story before when you interviewed Pete, you know, handed her the microphone. I just wonder if, you know, we would have gotten to know you if your daughter hadn't been there and really drawn that attention from us.
Well, I mean, I like to think, not because I like to think that everybody is drawn to her, and the fact that she was wearing Genesis and being 8 years old and into Genesis, I think is just the coolest, sweetest thing in the world. And I don't understand why everybody in the world doesn't say that she's the sweetest, the smartest, the cutest, the most wonderful little girl there ever was. But I know I certainly do. And Pete and the guys certainly felt that way. But you know, it's I'm a little you know, for anybody that doesn't know me, it's a little hard for me not to stand out. You don't meet a lot of people with golf carts attached to their behind. So with the fact that I was sitting in the front row with the Genesis stuff and hollering out, "This is what year this came out," and or bantering back and forth with Cliff, arguing about what year. You know, we might have still met up, but I think that Bella was the center of that for sure.
Yeah, and I like your golf cart analogy.
Yeah.
But just to say it, clearly you may have stood out to that reason when we were standing on stage, but the minute we started speaking, right, the common interest that we have, our common enthusiasm for this music. Your personality, just jumped out at me where I'm like, this is, just to say it, if you were not a Phil Collins fanatic and have all the other interesting thoughts and artistic talents that you have, I would have shook your hand and said, just like I meet lots of people after a show and said, hey, that was a really nice guy, with a family, and that would have been the end of it. But I think it was talking to you, there was an instant bond between all of us, right? That we knew we had more in common. And I think it's, led to this. And quite frankly, having lunch together, I'm sure you're talking about the lunch we had together this week.
Yeah.
Up to last week, we were just pen pals and mutual admirers of each other and friendly people. It was really nice to take that relationship to the next level. Yeah. Maybe go through a slight hardship we go through a conflict together. Maybe that's the right word. We went through a conflict together. Yeah. I dropped a couple F-bombs. It's like, okay, now we're really going to get to know each other at a human level. And that's really cool.
And it was addressing the conflict. It was absolutely beautiful what you did, and why you dropped those F-bombs is because the log house, which normally is, those people have money. When I was young, before I was married, in my drinking days, their son owns the bar. He was very good to me. I had my own drink in the bar, but his parents, they had money, and they sort of, as soon as we all walked in, what are you riffraff doing here? And then when it became very clear that as you said, that they were not going to lift a pinky to help us, my wife was dropping some F-bombs back in the corner, like why are we even bothering with this? We should go to Tasso's. And so you were back there at the table. I guess you can sum it up a little faster than I can, but they didn't have an accessible table, and they didn't want to move you to an accessible table because we had to wait till whoever was done at whatever spot. And we didn't have that kind of time. It was 1:30. You had to set up at 3 o'clock. It just wasn't going to work. So while they stuffed us in a corner and said, we'll bring you drinks, you went back to talk to the guys. And we were like, we should go to Tasso's. And you popped around the corner and said, how do y'all feel about Moondog Pizza? We like Moondog Pizza. But I said, do you like seafood? And you said, we like everything. So I said, great, let's go to Tasso's, because I have known Tasso all my life. I have grown up eating his steaks and his seafood, and I knew he would take care of us, and he certainly did.
Well, I think the thing that I learned, and just to admit it, I didn't think about accessibility until I got there. I was like,
no, we had it.
I said, man, I can't believe I didn't think to check that before. And I saw the ramp. I'm like, okay, we're good. But the thing that I picked up on, and I'll use the term unconscious bias. I don't think that manager meant any ill intention at all. So I don't want to question anybody's motives or anything. But I think that unconscious bias, and I'm assuming she didn't have any clue who you are, you from the past.
No.
the way that she talked to me and talked over you, like presuming that your physical limitation also translated into other limitations.
Right.
That was what hit me like a ton of bricks.
Right.
I didn't realize.
And the fact that you picked up on that. 99% of other people would never pick up on that. But the fact that you picked up on that means that you and I are going to be friends forever, because we get things that most people do not get. But I think you have to have an artistic soul to appreciate things like that. You know, we have the you couldn't tell it by looking at me, is what I tell people all the time, but I'm not the athletic type. I was, I was always, but I never thought, gee, I wish I could get up and walk so that I could play sports. That was never something I wanted to do. It was like I had to have a set of drums when I was 5 years old, even though I could not hold the stick in my hand, because I wanted to be like Phil. 5 years old. So with that being said, I just, the fact that you pick up on that, I was probably 15 years old before I could go into a restaurant and the hostess would hand me my own menu.
Oh God. Yeah.
I deal with crap like that every single day. Most days I can take it. My wife is a lot more sensitive about it than I am, because if somebody was doing it to her, I would be much more sensitive about it too. That's just how it is. But and Bella, and I'll have to edit this out too, but Bella, she does not care. She was screaming at people to move out of the way at Disney World, and we were screaming at them, and they still wouldn't move. But she was screaming at them people, get out of the way, my daddy's trying to come through. And that just makes every hardship, every shun in the world that you get, that just makes it all worth it. Like, I'd do it all again for that little one, But I deal with crap like that every day. But I had the point is, I had been to Log House. I had been served there. I have given them my money, and so they should know. I didn't know that particular one, but they should know that, I patronize their business, and my money spends like anybody else's money, but I don't have to spend money there anymore. And,
That's right.
And that, even though I had answered the question, you said, well, it's his life. He needs to be the one to decide. And the fact that I even answered the question articulately, and then it was still thrown back to you, or thrown back to Emily.
That was exactly it.
Yeah. I mean, I had proven that I could speak up for myself, but I still was not going to be heard, and so we went to Tasso's, and Tasso changed the ambiance of the entire evening.
Yeah. I mean, Tasso is like the Greek chef out of a movie script.
Yep.
I mean, his physical stature, his accent, his demeanor, his tone, and his welcoming, attitude was just like, it was scripted. It was so awesome.
Poor Pete, I didn't think he was going to make it through that meal of catfish. He was just so excited. I'm glad he didn't have to change shorts or anything. He got very he got very excited over that catfish.
Trying to channel, and for me personally, I'm living a pretty charmed life right now. Things are going the way for myself and my family the way I want them to, but I know that could change any day. And if I just try to think of a way to be positive and take that experience in a positive, I thought about like leaving them a 1-star review, but I'm like, that doesn't that doesn't help anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've thought to deal with like that restaurant is just like, send them a note. You say, I plan to just send them an email and go, this is our experience. I don't want to complain. I don't want to make you feel bad, but I want you to understand, and I want you to take that learning. And if they don't take that learning, fine, right? But I feel like to express how they made me feel, how I perceived they made you feel, and what opportunity they missed, I'm like, that's the best thing we can do, is try to like make it better for the next person that goes in there, or maybe teach them a lesson that maybe they can take forward and better themselves, regardless of what went wrong.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. That being said, we all had a great time at Tasso's. Everybody liked his food, right? Everybody.
Oh my God, it was so good. Yeah, I mean, we were like, yeah, this is a commercial for Tasso's, because after all that waiting and impatience and whatever, like when I walked in the door, everybody had a bowl of hush puppies and a water and some tea. Like, It was instant.
Yeah.
And that's what good Southern restaurants do, right?
Yeah.
You're instantly seated. You're instantly brought some tea. Your glass is never more than half empty to keep it full. And they rolled out the red carpet for us. It was so cool.
And another thing about Tasso that you'll love, he drives this big white truck. He drives a big white pickup truck, country music blaring.
Greek country.
we got out of there was no accordions, no anything. But we got out of the van, and Tasso hangs his head out the window. I come back in a minute. I'll be back in a minute. You wait for me. I'll be back. And that was Tasso.
Love it.
That's the connection that he has. I mean, he came out and welcomed each one of you individually, having never seen you before. And,
mm-hmm. Well, I think that was part of your factor. I think you brought a big group in, so he knew that there must have been, I don't know, I think he just sensed the occasion, right?
Yeah, he knew
based on his relationship with you and the energy that we brought in. So I think he matched us, met us where we were.
He knew us. And but that being said, I just absolutely loved the banter. The banter between you guys was just like, it was like being on a rock and roll tour bus. I mean, like that. Yeah. That's what I've always dreamed of, just watching just listening to. I was at that show, and I was at that show. And of course, I told my famous story of the Roseland Ballroom where I goofed up and froze up.
Mr. Chance.
Yeah, and Bella refers to it. Daddy, is that when you blew it with Phil Collins? Not to mention the fact that I was lucky to get into the show at all because I had the wrong tickets and almost turned myself over at 52nd and Broadway. Just the fact that I was in the building alive should have been a testament to my endurance, but it'll always be chalked up to. Doesn't matter that I got engaged that evening. Doesn't matter that I saw Phil with the Funk Brothers. What matters is I blew my chance to say hello to my idol. And I would gather that he's been your idol too for some time. So.
Yeah, I would say. Of people outside of my, parents and real, direct mentors in my life.
So you had a very musical family.
Not very musical, but my brother's a drummer, and he taught me to play drums. So that's how I really got into it. I will say this: my parents were not musically talented, but they liked. We always had music in the house, and they fortunately. So I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
They fortunately took me to rock concerts when I was 11, 12 years old. So my brother was 5 years older. He turned me on to things like progressive rock and bands like Genesis. And my parents, the stuff that he was bringing home in the mid 70s, they liked. So that they weren't listening to 50s music like other people of their generation.
Right.
They were listening to my brother's music. So all of us rallied around that music of the 70s, and that's what turned me on to progressive rock and kind of led me down the Genesis path. And so they would take us to concerts when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't say they were musical, but they nurtured it. And they allowed my brother and I to have, we had kind of like a dining room and a family room. And we turned the dining room into a drum room with 2 huge drum sets that he and I would play. Again, that's something else that kind of turned me on early was double drumming. So I was double drumming before I even knew about Phil and Chester. My brother and I would put on records and play together. So that's kind of how I got the bug.
And you would do the Phil and Chester thing with the drum duets. That's amazing.
Yeah, we never did Genesis. We never did a drum duet together. But I remember we used to put on. I think we probably played the 3-Side Live back in the day together. Yeah,
that's currently what is on Bella's Genesis rotation. Like, she has a game where she plays Genesis. She does the voices of Phil, Mike, and Tony, and they may be brought into her world, which might also include Justin Bieber, Billie Eilish, and all those that I hate that she's veering away from that, but I want her.
Billie Eilish is cool. If there's someone current that she's going to get into, Billie Eilish from a talent standpoint, I think is, and it's, it sucks that this generation, 30, 40 years ago,
right,
Billie Eilish would just be another great artist.
Right.
But now she's just like one of a handful of great artists.
Right.
So,
but
that's the time. That's the time we live in. Because we lived in the golden age.